They all strapped in, the bar clicked, and everything seemed all right. Until tragedy struck that took the lives of dozens. Here are 15 roller coaster accidents that should have never happened. Hit that subscribe button because what you're about to see will forever change the way you view theme parks. Smiler at Alton Towers. It was June 2nd, 2015, when a fully loaded train was carrying 16 passengers. However, everything that could go wrong absolutely went wrong when it collided at high speed with an empty test car on the Smiler at Alton Towers. Looking at the footage, it's horrendous as park guests show debris flying and passengers screaming in pain. According to the investigators, everyone thought it was a mechanical failure. But here's the truth, everything was due to human error. Ride operators manually overrode the safety system detecting the stalled car, assuming that it was a false alarm. But it made it worse because the collision happened at nearly 50 miles per hour. The results? 2 young women each lost a leg. For a long time, engineers had been complaining about communication issues between operators, and in the end, this led to a £5 million fine, one of the largest the UK has ever seen in the theme park industry. Thunder River Rapids at Dreamworld.
The victims have been identified as Kate Goodchild, her brother Luke Dorset, his partner Ruzi Aragi, and a 42-year-old woman. An empty raft became stuck, blocking the final stop of the raft that the deceased were riding in. The Gold Coast Bulletin reported that the victim's raft hit the empty raft and flipped. 2 of the victims were flung out of the raft into the water, while the 2 others were trapped under the raft.
If you thought the UK roller coaster ride was dangerous, wait till you hear what happened in Australia. Dreamworld was a family-friendly place, the kind of theme park where you take kids without any worry. But on October 25th, 2016, everything changed. A raft that was carrying 6 people flipped backward, throwing passengers into conveyor belt machinery. There, 4 people died instantly. Security footage shows the raft flipping after colliding with another raft that was stuck due to a water pump failure. Unlike the previous accident's split-second mistake, this was decades of negligence. The water pump had been malfunctioning for years, and management knew about it, but didn't make any amendments to fix it. What makes this horrifying is that Dreamworld hadn't even conducted proper safety audits in over a decade. Maintenance laws were ignored, and this led to $3.6 million in fines and permanent demolition of the ride. But the most disturbing part came out during the trial. The executive had been warned about the exact failure point, and they delayed repairs to save money. New Texas giant at Six Flags.
A woman died after she wasn't secured into her seat properly, witnesses said. While most seats were secured with 3 clicks, her seat harness only clicked once. An employee told the woman not to worry about it when she asked to double-check. The ride reaches 14 stories high, and witnesses said that as the coaster was coming down from a peak, her safety bar released, causing the unidentified woman to tumble out of the coaster, landing on a platform below.
Then came July 19, 2013, when Rosie Esparza was ejected from New Texas. She fell, and during the first major drop, she went down and fell 75 feet to her death. Cell phone footage shows her restraint fist appearing loose as her train climbed. She can also be heard shouting that her bar wasn't secure, but the worst part is that the operators didn't stop the train. What happened next shocked the investigators down to their core. The restraint system had been modified without any engineering approval. This case was different. The manufacturer redesigned the restraints to accommodate larger guests, which created a gap that allowed smaller passengers to slip through. The same thing happened with the poor girl, and what most people don't know is that Six Flags received multiple complaints about loose restraints weeks before that fatal accident. The ride continued operating the next day with minimal changes, and a lot of people started voicing it out, which makes the whole case even more messed up. Batman, the ride at Six Flags over Georgia.
Around 1:50 p.m. on June 28, 2008, Batman the Ride at Six Flags Over Georgia was operating normally. Little did anyone on the scene know that in a few moments they would bear witness to one of the most infamous accidents in amusement ride history.
Next up is one of the darkest moments in the theme park's history. A 17-year-old Asia Ferguson was going through her regular day, but what he didn't know was that he would be climbing through two 6-foot fences to retrieve a lost hat. Park surveillance shows him entering the restricted area with warning signs. A train traveled at 50 miles per hour and struck the boy right in the head, decapitating him instantly. At first, everyone blamed him for recklessness, but it was actually systemic failure. Six Flags has had a history of these issues, but the management has done nothing to fix them. After this incident, there was a nationwide change in fences, and what blows our minds is that Six Flags actually fought in order not change because installing fences would be way too expensive. Verruckt water slide at Schlitterbahn. Next up is the Verruckt water slide at Schlitterbahn that is claimed to be the height of ultimate thrill because it is the world's tallest water slide at 168 feet. On August 7, 2016, 10-year-old Caleb Schwab would face something he should never have. He was on the raft that would frequently go airborne, as reported dozens of times before the accident even happened. Caleb struck a metal support beam and was instantly decapitated. At first, the park claimed that this was unforeseeable, but it was basically negligence. Engineers had warned them that the ride was unsafe and even needed to be redesigned before opening. What makes this worse is that this park was rushed to meet. Travel Channel documentary deadline safety testing was minimal, and most people don't know that sandbags simulating riders were repeatedly launched off during testing, and engineers even advised them to shut down entirely. Fujin Rajin II at Expoland.
Her head was caught between the back of her headrest and the railing of the catwalk, killing her instantly.
Back in 2007, on May 5th, Japan's Fujin arrived to derail during operation. One car detached completely, and a 19-year-old woman was killed when thrown off the ride and crushed. Looking at the security footage, we see that the axle snapped mid-ride, and what happened next shocked even the investigators. The broken axle had metal parts. There was a massive crack visible during inspection, yet it was never replaced. Unlike previous design flaws, this was pure negligence. Maintenance records revealed that only visual inspections were conducted, and engineers estimated that the crack had developed for at least 15 years. They don't care about our safety, do they? Hydro and Oakwood Theme Park.
And then drops them down, reaching speeds of over 80 kilometers an hour.
This one is one of the most horrific accidents ever. On April 15, 2004, 16-year-old Haley Williams suffered a fate that no young child should experience. She was at the Hydro Oakwood theme park, where her boat reached the conveyor belt, and she fell onto the mechanism and was dragged underneath, suffering fatal injuries. At first, this seemed like a ride error, but it was actually a design flaw. The ride lacked any adequate restraints, relying only on a seatbelt and a sign. The park even received multiple reports of guests standing up during the final approach and having no safety measures, but they ignored them. The case sparked a huge debate about personal responsibility versus park liability, and this led to Oakwood being fined $250,000 and Hydro being permanently closed. Former employees even testified that they repeatedly asked management to install the lap bar, and requests were denied because of the costs. So far, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. The cases that are coming next will definitely shock you. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like these. Mindbender at Galaxyland.
It fishtailed wildly, shearing off most of the undercarriage in the process. The damage to the car caused the lap bar restraints to release, and the 4 riders in the car were thrown to the concrete floor below.
My Bender at Galaxyland was one of the most horrifying yet adrenaline-pumping rides back in the day. On June 14, 1986, this would become one of the largest roller coaster accidents ever. The world's largest indoor triple loop coaster derailed during the final loop, throwing 4 passengers out. 3 of them died immediately, and the 4th one, even though he survived that time, died just 4 years later. The cameras captured the last car separating and crashing onto the ground, And what shocked the investigators was that the wheel assembly failed because the mall contracted a local company that installed non-approved wheels that couldn't handle speeds and G-forces. This case highlighted the dangers of auto-sourcing to unqualified contractors. What made this even worse is that engineers found multiple other non-approved components, meaning that the coaster was a ticking time bomb and could have exploded just like it did in 1986. Superman, Ride of Steel at Six Flags.
Sergeant Hakama was a veteran of the Iraq War, and in the course of his service had been seriously injured by an improvised explosive device.
Man of Steel was supposed to be a symbol of hope, someone who protected you. Superman, Ride of Steel was a very famous roller coaster at Six Flags at Darien Lake. On July 8, 2011, Iraq War veteran James Hakama, who lost both legs in combat, was ejected from the Superman ride and fell to his death. He'd been allowed to board despite restrictions requiring 2 functioning legs.
It's that Sergeant Hakama was ejected from the train. Witnesses report that on the crest of one hill, the hat he was wearing almost flew from his head.
Cell phone footage shows his restraint failing to secure him during a high-speed turn. At first, it seems like operator negligence, but it was mostly systemic failure across the entire Six Flags chain. What makes this worse is that Hakama had ridden other Six Flags coasters during the same week and had been allowed to do so without any issue, creating inconsistency around the safety of these rides. Big Dipper at Battersea Park,
claiming the lives of 5 passengers and injuring 13 others in the process.
Next, we move forward to 1972 in London, where the Big Dipper derailed on a sharp curve, throwing 5 children from the cars, killing all of them. It remains one of the UK's deadliest roller coaster accidents, and it happened back in 1972 at Battersea Park. Photos show the train completely off the rails, hanging over the structure's side. The accident was caused by a broken bolt connecting to the train section, but it didn't even fall suddenly. It was loose for weeks, possibly months, and operators didn't even notice it or care to replace it. This revealed a culture of complacency over the ride's 21-year operation. Most people don't know that Big Dipper experienced multiple minor derailments in those years, covered up by the management. Fireball at the Ohio State Fair.
I see yesterday.
We saw the people coming out of the cart, and then I was right next to the line, so I saw the buttons that the guy was hitting, and he hit the emergency stop button, and as soon as he hit that, the whole cart ended up flying off because the force was so big from the big ride.
It was 2017 when the Fireball at Ohio State Fair broke apart mid-operation, throwing riders into the air and killing one 18-year-old Marine, while 7 were seriously injured. Cell phone footage shows the gondola separating from the arm where riders are still strapped inside, spinning violently. At first, investigators thought this was just a mechanical failure, but it was criminal to ignore such a failure at a ride. The ride also failed inspection before opening, but was allowed to operate anyway. Even the inspection report was altered to hide the official status. This was unlike most previous accidents, as it involved deliberate falsification. This led to criminal convictions and prison sentences, and it sparked a nationwide investigation, uncovering hundreds of rides operating with expired certifications. Space Journey at overseas Chinese town East. Next up is something that happened in Shenzhen, China. On June 29, 2010, a fire broke out inside the Space Journey dark ride in overseas Chinese town East. 6 people died from smoke inhalation trapped inside. Security footage shows smoke pouring from the entrance as the guests fled, but internal sprinklers never activated. Once the investigation was done, they saw that the suspect's suppression system was disabled during renovation months earlier and never reconnected. This wasn't a mechanical failure or an operational error. It was a straight-up corruption. Park officials bribed safety inspectors to approve reopening, despite knowing that the system wasn't functional. What makes this worse is that employees raised concerns and were threatened with termination. Haunted Castle at Six Flags. We're now back at Six Flags Great Adventure in the Haunted Castle. Back in 1984, something terrible happened. On May 11th, a fire broke out inside the Haunted Castle trapping and killing 8 teenagers who were unable to escape the smoke-filled maze. The fire spread so quickly that the best barely had time to react, and the confusing layout didn't help at all. It basically became a death trap. What makes this worse is that the attraction had no sprinkler system back in the day. There were no smoke detectors and no emergency lighting. It was essentially a tinderbox that became the cause of death for many people. Six Flags was charged with aggravated manslaughter, one of the times a corporation faced criminal charges for a theme park death. Tsunami at M&D's theme park. Moving forward to the second last, we have something horrific. It happened on June 26th at the Tsunami at M&D's theme park. Here, the gondola detached mid-loop and crashed into the ground, injuring 9. Cell phone footage shows it spinning violently as it fell, then slamming to the ground. M&D had a history of violations, including multiple near misses never addressed. Here, even though no one died, it was still such a weird spectacle to see the ride spinning so violently and then falling entirely. Shockwave at King's Dominion. At number 1, we have Shockwave at King's Dominion in 1990. Here, the Shockwave train collided with a maintenance worker named Candy Taylor on the track, which killed her instantly. Surveillance shows Taylor performing maintenance when the train was released. At first, officials claimed that she violated procedures, but it was management's failure to implement basic safety protocols. Even if there is a ride that is dangerous, no one should be allowed to access places like a ride when there is an active ride going on. Multiple workers complained about this when their concerns were completely ignored. Unlike previous accidents, this involved a worker, not a guest. This led to the OSHA investigations and massive fines. The most disturbing part came years later when similar accidents happened at other parks owned by the same company and were covered up, meaning that Taylor's death was entirely preventable. 15 accidents and 15 preventable tragedies. Every single one happened because someone prioritized profit over safety, ignored warnings, or failed to do their jobs. If this changes how you see theme parks, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to see it.